Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? I am so excited to do this video for y'all because it has been highly requested. Today we are going to be ranking and reviewing every single eyeshadow palette from Ensley Reign. They are a brand that I have fallen in love with over, I would say, the last year or so. I have every single one of their palettes here and I do feel really grateful because I have purchased, I believe, 2 of these myself, but the rest I ended up receiving in PR, so definitely keep that in mind. These were gifted to me, but it's still my honest opinions. They are an expensive indie brand. A lot of their palettes, we're talking $70, $80, almost $90. The shipping, even domestic, is a little bit expensive, so I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming on their website trying to decide where you want to start off with and what palettes are actually worth the price. Hopefully this video can help you out and maybe make that decision a little bit easier for you if you have been wanting to try Ensley Reign or you've tried a little bit and you're like, what's next? I do have an affiliate code with the brand. It is just Amy Loves, and I believe it saves you 10% off of your orders, so definitely recommend using a code. It does not have to be mine, but save a little bit of extra money if you can. Without any further ado, let's start ranking. So coming in 13th / last place is going to be the Flutter palette, and that does not necessarily mean that this is a bad palette by any means. It's just that I feel like they have a lot of other color stories I enjoy so much more. Some of their other palettes, I feel like you get more bang for your buck because this is, what was this originally? $50. And then I also have the Flourish palette in 12th place. I'll just mention right now because this one was $55. And these are both just slightly smaller palettes. And they do have some really beautiful things happening in them, but I can't say that I'm really obsessed with either color story. They're not palettes that I gravitate towards, and I feel like if you're gonna pay just a little bit more, they have a bunch of palettes that are only about $20 more than these, or $15 if you're talking about Flourish, and I feel like I prefer those so much more, so it felt really easy to put these in last place. And like I said, I mean, there are really beautiful shimmers happening here. I feel like the mattes in these smaller palettes are slightly more dry, but overall, like, you can still get really beautiful looks. And when I was checking the website today, they did have these on sale. I think you can get both of them for like $70 right now, so that's like $35 each. Not terrible. And then I don't know if a code will work on top of that or not, so it could be a potentially good deal, but they're just not my favorite. And I do have a full swatch party on every single one of these palettes except for one, I believe. So I'm gonna link some videos for you down below just to make it a little bit easier in case you're wanting to see swatches and see everything in depth. But this is the Flourish palette. No, yes, Flourish. I keep getting them mixed together. Flutter, Flourish, Flourish, Flutter. But I decided to put this one space up in 12th place just because I actually enjoyed this color story more than I thought I was to begin with, and there are a lot of really fun summery tones in here. So there you go, 13th and 12th place. I kind of wanted to put those together because it just made sense. And then in 11th place, I have the Strawberry Moon palette, and overall, it's kind of funny, you'll see all of the palettes that are in this kind of packaging and this layout tend to be my favorites, my top of the top when it comes to the brand. But Strawberry Moon is just a very, very bright, colorful palette. And I think for some people, this could be a #1 favorite. It really just depends on your personal preference. But I prefer either to have a palette that has a lot of neutrals or to have a palette that has half neutrals, half colors. And this is just not my personal comfort zone. It's more of a palette that I would reach into for a shade here and there versus doing full looks, which makes it a little bit less worth it because it is a $69 palette. But I mean, the shimmers are beautiful. You've got some really fun matte shades. I have absolutely zero complaints about the formula. This is just about the color story. And honestly, I feel like that's what most of this ranking is based on the color story, because the quality does seem to be, other than, like I said, the mattes being slightly drier in these two, the quality seems to be very consistent across the board. In 10th place, we have the Cosmic Dreamer palette, and this one does have more of that like half neutral, half color story I was talking about. But for some reason, this one just doesn't stick out to me. It just has not been a color story I've been consistently reaching for. We've got some really beautiful cool tones, which you know I appreciate, some really nice grungy greens, and definitely a really nice palette if you're into kind of more of a jewel toned color story. I think there's a lot of pops of that in here. You've got a good mixture of light and medium and deeper shades, lots of different matte options, but it just doesn't make my heart go pitter patter. And some of their other color stories are just so good and they just speak to me. They speak to my soul on another level that this one just kind of falls behind a little bit. Oh, that's my luck. I only messed up a shadow just a little tiny bit, but can you guys believe that I have broke 4 mirrors in the last week? I'm not a superstitious person, but I'm feeling a little cautious. Coming in 9th place is going to be the Twisted Tea Party palette, and I love the theme of this one. I love the Cheshire Cat. Like, I just think it's so fun. We're all mad here. It's just one of my favorite characters, and then all of the shimmers in here are so intense, so beautiful. I did mention this recently because it was in their sale section, so it might have sold out, but I feel like this is a really nice one if you're wanting to have a slightly smaller color story, because it is 16 shades versus a lot of the other palettes I'm going to be talking about are like 20 plus shades. So it's a little tiny bit smaller. You've got some super, super intense, sparkly, shifty, just amazing shades. I'm in love. It's just beautiful and I love the color story. Even though it is more colorful, I think maybe just because it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more curated, I feel more drawn to it. It is in 9th place though, which is still further down, and I feel like part of my decision for that is that it does retail for $83.33 originally, and that is a pretty penny. Like I said, you've got some extra special shadows in here, so I see where the price tag is coming from, but if you're gonna spend that much, I have other palettes that I would buy first, in my opinion. I just realized that we have 14 palettes here and not 13, so I'm so sorry. Apparently I cannot count today, so we have 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, okay? I'm sorry. So coming in 9th, 8th, and 7th place, I have all of the new mini palettes from Ensley Reign, and I feel like these are ranking kind of more in the middle for me because I love the price point. I feel like they are a little bit more of an affordable option. I think they could be really great if you're just wanting to get a taste of Ensley Reign, try out the formula, or if you just have a preference for smaller palettes, smaller color stories. You don't need to have 20 shades. You just want a little something something. I think all of these are super cute, really good quality, just as good of quality as the bigger palettes. So I ranked them according to my favorites. We've got in 9th place Nutty by Nature, which is a really cute, I would say more of just a fun, soft kind of fall neutral color story with some very, very intense multi-chromes. And this one does retail for $30. Not bad at all by any means, and the mattes in here are definitely a little bit more neutral. In 8th place, we've got the Happy Go Lucky palette. This one retails for $26, and I just really love this color story. I like the mattes in here. It's kind of just like this pretty kind of mauve-y coral moment, and even this shade, it's so funny because it looks like a full-on mint, but then when you swatch it, it has such a strong purple reflect. It's just very unique, and I think this is a really, really fun one. And then my favorite, the one that is launching today, is the What the Fox palette. This one is going to be retailing for $32, so the most of the minis. But y'all, the shade Vixen in this palette is just above and beyond so beautiful. You've got like a true multi-chrome, an iridescent multi-chrome, and then some really nice mattes. I did see some comments on my swatch party saying you wish that the 2 greens had more variation, but I feel like because we've got like a true deep green and then we've got this teal, that they're gonna look very different on the eyes, and then you also have a lighter shade to blend them out with. So I personally was not feeling that way about this palette, but I think it's so beautiful and it really does give you a taste of how good the Ensley Reign shimmers are, because that's what makes the price point more worth it in my opinion, is just that you are getting what feels like single shadow quality in a palette. I love that more and more we're having indie brands come out with eyeshadow palettes that have shades that would have been $15 or $20 bought individually. Moving on, we have in 6th place the Harvest Moon palette, and this one does retail for $88.88. So definitely a pretty penny, one of the more expensive palettes here. But I decided to rank it in 6th place because I really love the color story. I think it's such a fun, grungy, very fall palette, and it's not my tones this time of year necessarily. Like, I'm already like cool tone, winter wonderland kind of vibes, but I feel like anyone who likes a more fall color story, you will love this. Next fall, when I do my like top fall palettes, this is definitely going to make it into that video because it is so beautiful. I love the matte tones that were chosen, and all of the shimmers are stunning. You also have a really good mixture of multi-chromes. You've got some really beautiful holochromes. You've got some duochromes. All of the shimmers are what dreams are made of. Even this shade right here, this one took me by surprise, Sparkling Cider. It looks like just this like deep purple in the palette, but when you swatch it, it is the most stunning sparkly green. It's so, so pretty in person. The shift is just gorgeous. So this is the only palette that I do not have a swatch party on. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just didn't find a way to fit it into any content yet, but I did play with it myself. I have definitely had my grubby little fingers in here, but they are all beautiful. Like I said, not the color story I'm reaching for right now, and maybe not like my favorite all-time color story compared to the top 5 that are coming, but I think it's a really good one, and I could see a lot of people really, really enjoying it. I should probably just grab a makeup wipe out because, you know, these next 5 palettes, I'm not going to be able to keep my hands to myself. I'm like a toddler when it comes to these. So coming in 5th place, we have the Flower Moon palette, and this one retails for $72.22. I feel like this is another fall color story. It's giving Harvest Moon, but the more soft, light-hearted version. Like, this is a little more grungy vibes, and this is a little bit brighter, but I think honestly these two would be just the most beautiful companion palettes together. You've got so many pretty purple and green and rosy tones. I just think, again, for fall, I mean, you could use it anytime around year. Makeup does not have rules, but I get very, very inspired by the season. So that's why I can't help but bring them up, but I absolutely love this one. I think I really gravitated towards it more too because there are so many more light, sparkly shimmers, and I really prefer a light shimmer, especially for my lid. I just feel like it makes my eyes look bigger and more wide awake. I feel like the reason why this one costs a little less than Harvest Moon is that even though the shimmers are still super, super shiny and special, they are more duochromes and one-dimensional versus some of the other more expensive palettes have multi-chromes and holochromes in them. But I still think they're just sensational. In 4th place, we have the Groovy Garden palette, and please don't hate me, I'm about to say it again. I feel like this is just giving fall, and it's just the prettiest color story. I love the tones of the mattes in here between all of the kind of sage greens. We've got some really pretty like rosy tones, some really nice deepening shades, and I feel like, yes, we have a little bit of warmth here with certain tones, but nothing too intense. This one is priced at $69. I just think it's because there are so many more mattes. So I think I would really recommend this to someone who likes a special shimmer, but you also really like to use a bunch of different shades in your crease and your outer V, and you like to, you know, really have fun with your mattes. I think that some of their other palettes are more geared to like just throw one shade in the crease, one shade on the lid, and you are good to go, and it's just so easy. But this one, I think, you know, it's a little bit more of a mixture, and it's just really, really beautiful. Like I said, I mean, it's in my top 4. And then coming in 3rd place is going to be the newest launch from Ensley Reign. That is the Light in Your Eyes palette, and this is the one I would recommend to a true neutral lover. You've got so many beautiful neutral shimmers in here, just basically everything you could need. You've got some gold, some bronze, some champagne, some like pewter, and I feel like there's just so many beautiful options here. You do have some matte mattes. You have some neutral mattes, and you have a few colorful grungy mattes. But I think that if you are someone who prefers mostly neutral looks, not necessarily cool tones, because we'll get to cool tones in a second, but I think that this could be a good palette for you. And that one does retail for $75. Third place. In second place, we have the first eyeshadow palette that I ever purchased from Ensley Reign that really got me into the brand. So that is going to be the Lands of Enchantment palette. This one retails for $88.88. And I feel like it was a really good experience for me to purchase this myself and just get a really good feel for the brand, because I knew like this is an expensive palette, and then I think I paid $16 for shipping. So I was like, okay, I need this palette to be worth $100. Like, I paid a whole Benjamin for this one, so I need it to be worth it. And it's just a little bit more nerve-wracking when it's your first time trying a brand. You really don't have any experience with their shadows and you're making an order so expensive. It's like, I really, really hope that it's worth it. And obviously you can see that I believe that it is. It's in second place, and I love this palette. I will mention really quick, if you are someone who does not like when your shadow like oil kind of starts fading out and going into the packaging, that has happened big time in this, and it also happened in the Light in Your Eyes palette. So just something to keep in mind if that does bother you. For me, it's no big deal, but she is a stunning, very colorful mixture of pink and purple and blue and green, but in the most ethereal way. And what really sold me about this palette is that, yes, the mattes are good, they do what they're supposed to do, but the shimmers, we've got so many multi-chromes. I'm not even swatching. I'm not even thinking. I'm just so focused on telling you my feelings that I'm not swatching the shadows. But like I said, I have so many swatch parties on these already up on my channel. But the shimmers, you've got multi-chromes, you've got the most beautiful holochromes, like just so pretty. And this is another one where it's like, you know, is the quality that much better than like the other last few I've mentioned? Not necessarily. I feel like they are on par, but it's just the vibes of this palette, the color story. I'm just like, she's so pretty. To me, this is like a very ethereal kind of spring color story. We have talked about spring, we've talked about summer, we've talked about fall. Let's talk about, to me, the most beautiful winter palette slash my number one eyeshadow palette from Ensley Reign. That is going to be the Cold Moon eyeshadow palette, and this one does retail for $72.22. And if I could only have one palette from Ensley Reign, it would be this one 100%. And I did start receiving their other palettes in PR before this came out, and it was on pre-order, and I remember thinking like, okay, I probably don't need to buy this because I have other cool tone palettes. Like, you guys know, I mean, I have my own collab, and it is my cool tone, like, perfect color story. So I was really trying, oh, I almost dropped that. That's with Adept Cosmetics if you haven't seen it. But I was really trying to convince myself that I did not need this palette, and then I had plenty of things from Ensley Reign, but I was like, you know what, I cannot take it anymore. I'm just gonna buy it. I'm just gonna buy it. And I did, and I have absolutely zero regrets. She is stunning. I love that the mattes in this palette, I feel like we have a lot on the muted side. You've got lots of different options to go a little bit more gray, a little bit more rosy, a little bit more mauve-y. I've got this shade Winter Solstice. It's kind of like a gray sage in my crease today. And then I have a little bit of Citronella, this shimmer, all over my lid. I love this palette. I feel like if you are a cool toned makeup lover, you would really, really enjoy it. I feel like I'm on a broken record, but you have so many beautiful shimmers happening in this palette as well. So many amazing textures that just make it very, very worth it to me. This is the kind of eyeshadow palette I want to reach for every single day. It just really fits my style of makeup. So I love it so much. Fully recommend it, but I think my recommendations, especially from like number 6 and onwards, it's really about preference of color story. I think any palette that you look at and visually enjoy that you would be happy with. So there you have it. That is all of my Ensley Reign palettes ranked. I really hope that you enjoyed this review and ranking, because I know you've got like $1,000 or something worth of eyeshadow here. It can be very, very overwhelming to decide where to start with, but I truly feel like if you enjoy special shimmer shadows and you like a simple, easy to build up, easy to blend matte formula, that you would enjoy anything that Ensley Reign has come out with. So I will see you again tomorrow for another day of Indiemas. Bye!